So I was doing some reading and I came across a story. And in this story, there was a jar. And it was said that if you put 100 black ants in the jar and leave it alone, and then you take 100 red ants and put it in the very same jar and leave it alone, that the ants would coexist peacefully together. But if you were to grab that jar and shake it up, then what would happen is the red ants would attack the black ones and the black ants would attack the red ones, thinking that each other was the enemy. And what's the moral of the story? That neither one was the enemy of each other, but the enemy was the person who shook the jar. Hello leaders, my name is Jason Graziani and welcome to our channel, Leader for Life. Today we're going to talk about leadership principles along the lines of shaking the jar. Quite possibly you may remember a time when you were the one in that jar, or you may have been a leader at times and you tried to shake that jar. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that means and how to be productive within your organization. First, let me give you some examples of what I mean by shaking the jar. You look at governments oftentimes. Maybe this is about war. Maybe this is boundaries. Maybe this is lines. Maybe this is different issues that they have either internally or externally with other governments and other nations. You may look at corporations that are seeking to benefit the bottom line, and maybe the entire focus is what's better for the corporation. And so sometimes maybe people at the bottom are expendable, or maybe you're putting a department against another department or an employee against another employee and shaking that up to get the best results. Or maybe you're creating some division or some strife within your organization. We may look at churches. If you're a Christian like myself, you may know that the church's sole obligation is to bring more people to God, but sometimes you've probably seen in your community that even one church may want to take another person from another church to their church instead of focusing on the mission that they're called to do in the first place. You may look at families raising children. Have you ever heard or been a part of this? Well, did you hear how your brother got good grades? Or did you see how your sister played well in sports? Or why can't you be more like your brother or your sister? Because what essentially that's doing is a parent is shaking that jar to get the most out of the children, but sometimes that creates some division. Maybe it's even with our own self. Maybe it's with our own confidence. Maybe it's with our own ego that starts working against itself and it doesn't produce the best results for us. So let's take a look at a couple of those principles right now. First, competition is good, but dividing is bad. Comparing insecurities is always bad. If you lead an organization, whether you're in the government sector or you're the private sector or you're running a family or a church, you might find, and I could think back to when I've messed this up many times myself, in an effort to get the most out of the group or the most out of my team, there's been times that I've messed up and that I've put people against each other, or I said who's better than who, or I've even compared insecurities to try to get somebody to perform better. And I didn't find that overall, maybe I had some short-term results, but I didn't find that long-term that was healthy for the organization. Now, I've learned this the hard way myself, and I want to share this with you to help save you some time on your learning curve so that maybe what took me 7, 10, 15 years could take you 2, 3, 4 years, and you don't have to avoid some of these pitfalls that we all find ourselves in. Internal battles are good. Don't think that competition is bad. Remember, competition is good. Keep that internal battles going, but as long as they're secondary to the organization's goals. What do I mean the organization's goals? If you always are battling with each other, but you know that you have a common goal together, that's okay. But if we end up talking about the division and the internal struggles more than we talk about what the organization is trying to achieve, that's not okay. And that's where it creates infighting. And you've probably seen this all over the government right now, and you've probably seen this with men and women. You may have seen this with the left and the right with politics. Maybe you've seen this with the rich and the poor and the economic classes and the economic class warfare. Maybe you've seen this with faith and science. Maybe you've seen it with younger or older. Maybe it's even been black or versus white or Hispanic or Asian, or any race, religion, creed, or any other way to divide ourselves isn't going to be productive. See, accountability is good, but assigning blame and shame is rarely productive. Sometimes in an effort to get people to do more, we'll cast blame onto them. you should have done more, or do you see how Jeff is performing? Do you see how Mary's performing? Wow, you could be a lot better. Maybe if you were as good as Jeff, then you could. And what you're doing is you're playing on their insecurities, and that's indirectly assigning shame to a person. And I think that if we focus on the love-based approach of encouraging and praising, I could think of two examples specifically. One is Jesus Christ. You look at the largest following in the world, and you look at the most common sold book, the number one sold book, the Bible in the world. This wasn't a mission of dividing. This wasn't a mission of go take over. This was a mission of evangelize, teach, talk, love, grace, forgiveness. I think about the greatest country on the planet, the United States of America. Not a perfect country, but the greatest country. And what made America the greatest is when it got started, the goal wasn't to world dominance. The goal was freedom, the Bill of Rights, the individual's freedom to achieve the most. And I believe, and many would agree with me when I say this, that America achieved so much prosperity in a short amount of time, not because the organization America was a goal to achieve something, but that America itself was there to protect the rights of an individual. And that if you let individuals be free and you let them operate on their own accord, that they will achieve more than the organization could have ever asked of them. And that's the United States of America. By the way, you'll see how I have question marks right here. If you, the viewer, have some other feedback, or you have something that should be right there. I struggled inside. I said, I know Jesus led this way. I know America operates this way, and I don't mean everybody in America operates that way. I'm saying the foundational enterprise, the experiment we call America, operates that way for the rights of the individual. I can't think of something else. I couldn't think of something else that didn't divide, that didn't segregate, that didn't operate from a place of shaking a jar. So just remember, leaders, that no matter what organization you're currently leading, whenever we're about to fight one another, we should always stop and ask, who shook the jar? Because in the mouth of the envy, we're all bad. Hey leaders, I hope that this video provided you value. I hope that this will help you avoid some pitfalls when you're building your organization. Always remember to encourage and not divide. Don't assign blame and shame, but tell people how they're special and what they could do in the organization. Keep the organizational goals important, but let people lead it and rise up. You don't need to put people in a box, and you definitely don't need to shake it to get the most out of them. Although you may get some returns in the short term, long term, I think you're going to succeed a lot more if you avoid doing that completely and spread love, spread grace, and make sure that you serve people and treat them right. If this content helped you in any way, I'd love for you to subscribe to our channel, Leader for Life. I'd love for you to like the content, comment, and please give me something for the question marks right here. I'd love to find out what we could put in this spot, and I look forward to hearing back from you. You guys take care, God bless, and we'll see you at the top. Make sure to choose to be a leader for life.